parking ordinance, 1718. Is there anyone who'd like to address? On the parking, there is a Dave McFarland that has signed up. So I'll let Dave McFarland come first. Oh, okay. So, seeing no Dave McFarland? Anyone else who would like to speak on the public hearing on the parking? Seeing none, we will, let me just make a note. We will open the regular meeting, and I will recognize Councilman Julius Waits to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance and the invocation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Dear Heavenly Father, please be with us tonight as we make decisions that will govern our town, hopefully help our town and help our citizens. Please continue to remember our men and women in uniform, be they military, police, firefighters, or medical workers. We ask these blessings in your Son's precious name. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. And next. Okay. Next item on the agenda is the reading of the minutes from June 20th, 2017. Is there a motion for approval of the minutes?
So move.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor then of those minutes being approved as written, do so with show of hands. Next item is the administrative briefing. Mr. Brown, anything you want to add on the briefing?
No, sir.
Any questions of Mr. Brown on the briefing? Seeing none. Next item is an update on the National Night Out, and I think Chief, yeah.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. As you're aware, National Night Out is coming up August 1st. National Night Out is a time to heighten crime prevention awareness to the citizens, generate support and partnership between the community and the service members of the Irmo Police Department and Fire Department. And through this partnership, hopefully we can send a message to the criminals and the element in the neighborhoods that we're standing strong and we're community-oriented and we're family-oriented. This year, I wish he could be here, but Haman Javed, he's a citizen of the town, of the community, but not in the town. He came to me and wanted to write Publix a letter about National Night Out, and they offered a $75 gift card to us so we can purchase some things for National Night Out. I wanted to recognize him, but he has cancer. He had to go get some stuff done, but he's in our prayers. He's doing very well. Okay. So, along with that, though, we do have a bouncy house coming for the kids, toys and games. Like I said, we're going to be there. The fire department's going to be there. Hopefully, you guys will be there as well to meet and greet the community. We're also going to have the National Guard is going to be there with a Humvee, right on time. Come on up. And they're going to be able. They're going to give out a couple things too. We're going to have several businesses around and in the town that are going to come out and support this event. One of the businesses that's going to support the event is Texas Roadhouse, and Natalie, who made it right on time, is going to tell you what Texas Roadhouse is going to be able to do for the Irmo community.
Hey, so I do the marketing at Texas Roadhouse, and with the National Night Out, we're providing hot dogs and we're grilling, and we're bringing some girls out there, some toys for the kids, and just trying to make it really fun. I'm trying to get one of our Andy, our mascot. It's a 7-foot armadillo out there. So,
Go look at the volunteers and
anybody wants to wear that. We also have some other community events going on. our troops. August 6th, it's a bike ride we do. And if you guys aren't familiar with that, Homes for Our Troops provides mortgage-free homes for veterans. The last one that they did in Columbia, it was for a wheelchair-bound veteran, and they custom-built the entire house for him. And then we also have our back-to-school bash, which Mr. Perry's helping out with on August 14th, and it's for the kids, and we're doing a donation to Children's Miracle Network in that.
So we just
Thank
like to, what we like to do with the National Night Out, I know last year was kind of like come out, meet everybody and leave. So what I envisioned for National Night Out for the town of Irmo, the community, and the surrounding area was a coming together of the police department, the services like police department, fire department, everything, the community and the businesses all coming together and able to talk openly and communicate and just, you know, shaking hands and just being what we should be as a family-oriented community. So that's what I envisioned, and I was going to try to push that really hard this year. And with help from businesses like Publix and Texas Roadhouse, hopefully we can make that happen. So I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. And next is the code enforcement update.
I think you all have the notes. This was actually made July the 10th. And I'll sit up on the board, but I'll be glad to answer any questions. We had a couple of cases that were worth highlighting. One of them I didn't get to highlight was we had a gentleman in the neighborhood that had a expired tag on his car after the abatement. We went to make contact, the officer went to make contact with him, and he decided he wanted to run out the back door, so. But he actually was subsequently arrested for that, for a different ordinance that we have for basically interfering with the investigation. So that's a very rare occasion, but I think it was worth highlighting. And then we had, as Chief Perry stated, we had 4 community events in June that are listed on that sheet as well.
Yeah, I saw that somewhere. Where did I see that? Was it on there?
We had emailed it because of
Yeah.
the format, we can't put it on the PowerPoint.
Oh, okay.
We're working on that, trying to get it in
Oh,
the
okay.
format.
Yeah, I was thinking.
You got it a while ago.
Yeah.
You know, yeah.
Wasn't it like 100 and
Yeah.
140, something like that?
143 total cases,
And only 3 written or something like that?
3 tickets, that's correct.
Cool.
2 were for animal complaints and 1 was for the vehicle violation.
Okay.
It was on the 10th.
And I wanted to ask something about that one we get on the email. Like I noticed, and I know you probably haven't got this same page, but there's like 13 pages. But on one of them, it'll have, like the start date was 5/11, the end date was 5/21, which is that 10-day abatement. But on some of them, they had like a start date of, I'm looking at 1/7/8 and then 1/7/23, but they're for no tags. Are they different
Yeah.
for like no tags and,
Vehicle license violations is a 15-day.
oh, okay, oh, okay.
Most of the other ordinances are 10 days. What we're trying to do is keep that on that date that you see, correspond with whatever the violation is. We had a little learning curve where some of the officers were putting in, if they granted an extension for some reason, they would put that due date to whatever the extension was.
Okay.
We don't need to do that, we just need to make it in our notes section, so it's a little less confusing. So.
Okay. And then if some of them on there like start date of 10/4/2016 and end date of 10/14/16, since that's a year ago, does that mean this one may be one that's, well, it's got unsightly and grass, so that probably means it's one of the vacant homes that,
It could be vacant, it could be something we can't track somebody down
oh,
for.
okay.
That's really the only reason why you'll see something in there that's older than a month or 2, is because we just can't, we can't track it down. And we have all the notes listed on our copy,
Right.
but there's some
Well, do you ever take them off? I mean,
Oh, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
okay.
'Cause, I mean, at some point, we're able to get a hold of a bank or whoever a responsible party is, and whether they're issued a citation or, it was just abated, it's noted in our section, and then it's removed from that law.
Okay. Okay, cool. Well, I think only 3 tickets out of 143 is good. Very good.
I got a question for you. I noticed in 6 Castleville Circle, you had a couple of issues with that property. But the one that just struck my interest is high grass in the backyard. What are we doing in the backyard looking at the grass? I mean,
Okay, so, we originally are there because there's a big hole in that house. Like a huge hole. They boarded it up, and then we got word from the neighbors that, some juveniles tore the boards down.
is it a vacant house?
It is
Oh, okay.
vacant, it's a foreclosure deal, there was a fire there,
Oh, okay.
and so while we're there, if we're there investigating something and we see something else like the grass,
Right.
we address that
You
as
keep
well,
going. Okay.
so. And that could go for a car or anything else that might be on the property.
Right.
We're there and we're dealing with one thing, we don't just let another thing go, we address everything or try to at one time.
Any more questions? Thank you, thank you. Next is amendments to the agenda. Any amendments to the agenda? Seeing none. Next is consideration of communications.
I have one.
Oh, okay. Let me do this one here first.
Okay.
This is I've got a letter from somebody on Chadford Road, and they are writing to complain about all the DOT work ahead, work in progress, whatever those signs are, in the road work. And I know I've talked to Bob about them. He's called DOT. Some of the signs have a name on them or a number on them. Some neighbors have called me about it, and I've called them. But just for the record, if DOT or the person, the company who's doing whatever road work for DOT hasn't asked for a final inspection and they haven't done one, and those signs are still, I think you called me one time on.
I
they had
did.
these black
They were on
plastic-
Royal Tower.
Yeah, and they're all over the neighborhoods. In fact, he mentions one somewhere upside down. And all the ones that, and even the people over in West Columbia said, well, if you take them down and somebody gets hurt, I'm like, well, they got a black plastic
They got a
bag
black
on now,
plastic
so
bag over.
can't read them anyhow, so
Yeah.
what, I don't know. But anyway, I'm gonna give this to you. You can, whatever, talk to that guy or something. I know there's,
Council already
oh,
knows.
you did? Oh, okay. I just thought it was in my thing.
Okay.
Well, good. That's it.
You ready? Okay. We've had an issue of some concern bothering all of us on council that had to do with a court hearing last week. And we thought maybe if we could solve it peacefully and try to show that we could work out problems like adults and with the best interest of the town at heart, maybe it would help. So I asked the mayor to write a statement and read it to us and see if that would handle it. I don't know that, I haven't read the statement, but anyway, I asked him to.
So
I have some communications too.
Okay.
We I think all of us got an email from Mark. You know, he's out today. I guess he's traveling, and he's requested that we not pursue motion item number F and I guess postpone that or reschedule that onto the next council meeting. And that's something that we should consider because he is our colleague and he has emailed us to ask us about that. At the same time, if you want to read some kind of statement, I think we should do that when we get to item F as part of that issue because it is part of that issue. It's not a general thing. So.
And this is very short, I think sweet. But, and I will give,
Thank you.
and then Bob, I'll give you a copy and you can give one to Renee too for the record, I guess, if it needs to go in there. Without getting into too many details, I would like to read a statement about my involvement in a request by Mr. Ron Dooley to reopen a case regarding a code violation at his property on Lake Murray Boulevard in Irmo. I was asked by Mr. Dooley to appear in court at a hearing for reopening his case and to testify as to a statement I was told by the officer involved. I did testify under oath as to what I was told by the officer and what I was told by Mr. Brown, our town administrator, that he had heard the officer state to Mr. Dooley and to another witness. I knew when I was asked to testify by Mr. Dooley it would be a political uproar by some, and some would not like that I did appear and testify. Was it a politically correct thing to do? No. Was it an easy thing to do? Not really. Was it a difficult decision to make? No. Was it a difficult thing to do? Yes. Was it, in my opinion, the right thing to do? Yes. Others may have handled this differently than I, and even better than I. But I sincerely believe I did the right thing in testifying as to what I heard. Hardy King, Mayor of Irmo. And I will give Bob these extra ones. And, Renee's not here. Anyway, she can have one, and y'all can have one. And if a press or somebody wants one, there's some. I don't know if there's enough, but. And, yeah, we can talk about the other thing when you get to that. My opinion of what Mark wrote was, if we were going to discuss it, let's defer it, but if it was not going to be seconded or discussed, then just don't do that either. But we can get that to that point when we get there. Any other consideration of communication? Seeing none. Presentation by citizens. This is where anyone who would like to address council on anything that's on the agenda, including the parking, if you didn't make it to the public hearing, may do so at this time. All we ask is you give us your name and address for the record, and then what item you'd like to speak to.
Brent Chipwood, 131 Casco Bay Road. I'd like to defer all of my comments at this time.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I'm sorry, I got a list I was supposed to. Yeah, Brent. And then the next one on here was Ron Dooley. Did you want to speak? Oh.
I have about 5 pages. I wish I could speak to everyone. However, because of possible litigation by me in the future, my attorney advised me not to speak, so therefore I'm not going to say anything.
Okay. And the next was Wayne Duncan.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot of dogs in the hunt on this deal, but Ron Dooley, many years back, and his brother Rick, before he passed away, we are conservatives, Ron, myself, and what have you, and he pretty much turned over the capability of signage on that property there as far as political signs to me, to screen applicants and what have you. And the reason I'm here is I read an article in the state newspaper by Tim Flack. He half the time gets it right and half the time he doesn't. And he was indicating that there might be a political situation.
You're addressing things on the agenda now. What agenda item are you addressing?
I'm addressing what took place in the newspapers. I just wanted to clarify.
But that's not on the agenda, sir. You have to wait until after the meeting.
But what's on the agenda, and there is a motion to censure Mayor King regarding the actions during the Irmo Municipal Court proceedings, and that did involve the signs on the property. And
no, it didn't. That has nothing to do with that issue at all.
So you're going to make me sit here and listen to y'all pontificate?
If I'm reading this correctly, what's on the agenda is...
If you want to talk about anything on the agenda, I don't have a problem at all.
I don't even know what's on your agenda.
Okay. Let me just make a ruling here. There's a motion to censure the Mayor King regarding his actions during the Irmo Municipal Court on July 5th.
What does that got to do with this?
I'm going to be finished.
What's it got to do with the
You're
sign?
interrupting. On July 5th, there was a court date, and during that court date, there was an article that came out, a couple articles that came out in regards to that, that had to do with that, and something was brought up about signs in one of those articles that does have to do with this court date. Try to tie it to that court date and
Okay,
whatever was
well,
in that
well, my
article.
point was this, short and sweet. Anybody that wants to put signs on that property, per Mr. Doolittle, is supposed to come through me. I did let the mayor, Mr. Mayor, put a sign up there. Chip Huggins had a sign up there. He thought he was supposed to be able to put one up. I took it down. He said, why'd you take? I called him and told him I took his sign down. And I said, because Chip, you hadn't been doing your job for the last 10 years. And he said, well, look into what I've been doing for the last year. So I called some people in Chapin. He had been working real hard. So I let him put his sign back up. So, I mean, I'm realistic about things, but don't blame Ron Doolittle and the mayor for in cahoots or whatever you want to call it, for some kind of trick play, for the mayor to be up here. And I don't, the mayor's not my friend. Ron Doolittle's a friend of mine. But I just wanted to clarify the fact, if you want a sign on the property, call me, Wayne Dunn, okay? Thank you.
Thank you. And anyone else who would like to address, even if you hadn't signed up, that'd be fine, yeah.
Good evening. My name is Milton Cooley, 29 Old Stream Court. Don't have a copy of the agenda, but I want to discuss parking. I understand you
It's
are
on there.
considering some changes to the parking. My concern is probably already illegal, but I want to bring it to your attention so that in your consideration of these parking ordinances, maybe there's some consideration could be given to this particular issue. I live on a cul-de-sac, one way in, one way out. I think the issue has probably been resolved now because of transition in the neighborhood, but I'm not sure exactly what was going on, but it appeared to be that the neighbors on the end of the street had some kind of duel going on as to who was going to be able to park on the street. So we had a bunch of cars parked down one side of the street, and then cars parked on the other side of the street. And my understanding is anytime you can't get an ambulance through there, that makes it illegal. But if you can't get your personal car there, it makes it very annoying. So our neighborhood is in transition. We're supposed to know each other, and for the most part we do, but you got a lot of transition. People come in and you don't get a chance to know them. So it's kind of hard for me as a neighbor to go ring your doorbell and go, hey, move your car, and that's just kind of not a thing you can do much anymore. So I'm hoping in your consideration of the parking ordinance that you have, and people don't necessarily have to have tickets. A lot of it may just be ignorant. So if there's a procedure where the police force can come by and give them a little friendly notice, hey, you're blocking the street and an ambulance can't get through, much less your neighbor's able to get out. There was an incident where there was a panel truck, which is kind of wide, was stuck in the neighborhood for half an hour because there were cars on each side of the street and it literally wouldn't get through the passage. He came in, there were no cars. He tried to get out, cars on both sides. So I don't know if there's anything that you can do to make that process easier. It does come up from time to time where there are, parties and, that's just a, occasional thing. But it is dangerous because if I fall out, the ambulance can't get to me. So I hope you'll consider something along that line. I don't know what can be done. I just throw it out for your consideration.
Mr. Cooley, could you get in your driveway?
Yes, not the drive, it's the street. So
It's
we
just the street,
we have
okay.
a main street that comes down, and then we've got cul-de-sacs off of each side. So everybody is kind of parking wherever they park, and as long as you have one car on one side, everything is lovely. But when the next person comes and they park immediately beside that car,
You can't get through.
you can't get through.
I understand.
Now, if you put maybe in the ordinance you could specify when you park on both sides of the street, there has to be a 25-foot, 50-foot, I have no idea what's a good number, but there needs to be separation so that I can zigzag and get through, an ambulance can zigzag and get through, and I can come and go as I please, which is not good if I can.
I agree.
And we will be addressing that parking ordinance the very next thing. So if you want to hang around for a while, it'll pop up on that screen what we're voting on as far as third reading. It should show up. And I think, and they would have to answer, but there is an ordinance that says you can't impede the flow of traffic. So if somebody's impeding that, then I think you could call and they could come over and make somebody move a car if they know which house it is and know all that stuff, and they ain't gone to work and left it in the road and everything else. But
and you can sometimes get through. So now, if I have to slow down to a crawl so I can look on each side to make sure I'm not hitting anything, is that impeding or is that just?
It's dangerous.
Yeah. So I don't know. Whatever you can do, I would greatly appreciate it.
And most of what we're trying to do is not force them into the road. So hopefully it won't end up with no more people in the road than there is now. But like I say, if you want to stay, you'll be able to read that and hear more and kind of, yeah, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Let's see. Anyone else? Seeing none. Next item on the agenda is the unfinished business. Third and final reading.
Wait a minute.
She wants to speak?
Oh, okay.
Hi, I'm Linda, and I live at Garden Brook, which is a new development.
Oh,
We
yeah.
have a boat that's parked on the street, and it's my understanding your ordinance allows boats to be parked on the street.
Yeah, the ordinance does, and the law does too.
That
State
needs
law.
to- Wait a minute, that needs to be amended because Richland County's ordinance, and I'm Richland County, says no boats parked on the street. If a boat parked on the street with a big
Yeah, and the
truck,
boats might not be able to. I'm not,
a long boat,
we don't say, so you can? Well, Garden Brook's in the town, so that's in, yeah, so,
Garden Brook's in town, but
Yeah.
our street is a county road.
yeah, but it's still in town, so we
Still in
gotta go by
town.
our,
But your ordinance says it's contradictory. We're in Irmo.
Yeah.
We have a problem with parking, we can call the Irmo police. Richland County says our street belongs to the county. My development and the common area all belongs to Richland County.
yeah.
So, Richland County says no boats parked on the street, and your ordinance says, yes, you can poke. And our streets are narrow. So, you have a big boat.
Yeah, we'll have to look at that one and get Eric.
You know what she's talking about?
I do.
Have you seen the boat parked on the street?
I haven't, but I'll check it out.
And then you have parties where there's 12 people parked on both sides of the street. You have cars coming up. You can't get through. You have to pull in somebody's driveway. That doesn't make any sense. It's
No.
hazardous. If there's an emergency, somebody dies, it's gonna be somebody's insurance. Then they're gonna sue the town for allowing a crazy ordinance, which is so outdated. It's contradictory, so it needs to be changed.
Park on your grass in front of your house.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none. Next item is the unfinished business, third and final reading of ordinance 1718, which has to do with the off-street parking. Is there a motion for third and final reading?
I so move.
And a second?
I second, because we need to discuss the two things that were just brought up.
Yeah. Well, I'll let Julie go first since you made the motion, and you can go.
The whole thing with this parking change is for so long, as you said, you live in an area that was Richland County and is now town of Irmo. Where I live was Richland County when I bought my home and became Irmo. So there are a lot of ordinances that are contradictory in our town code. One can say park on the left, one says park on the right, so what do you do? And that's what we're trying to do now, is come up with a major ordinance and start tweaking each one of these that contradicts or violates it. And we need to hear from people that are having problems. One problem that I know that seems to be a little rampant every now and then is people parking on the wrong side of the road. You park on the right side that you're traveling on. You don't park on the left side because your car is now facing traffic, but there are no reflectors on the front of an automobile. And I was on a case in court here many years ago, and the case was thrown out because the young lady was coming around a sharp curve during a rainstorm and hit a car head on. And the judge asked, how did she plead? And she said, I guess guilty. And the judge, a rather large man, reared up in his seat and he says, how do you plead? And she said, not guilty. Case dismissed. So after the court, I walked up and asked the judge, I said, I was following this and kind of got lost when you dismissed the case. He said, well, she hit a parked car. It was on a sharp curve, but it was parked coming toward her. She's going around a sharp curve. Her lights didn't hit the car until she hit the car itself. He was wrong, she was wrong. So I dismissed the case. That's why we have judges. They make decisions. We have laws to guide them, but the judge ultimately makes the decision.
I don't know what to do about the cul-de-sacs that aren't wide enough to have cars parked on either side. I don't know what to do about that.
Well, people need to park in their driveways, which a lot of people don't even use their driveways.
But I full well understand the lack of space. And that, isn't that against some law?
Yeah, if it's impeding like that, we would have to address it in a cul-de-sac.
Yeah.
And you have some cul-de-sacs, I know, over in Hidden Oaks. Once you cross the bridge and kind of go up the hill and turn to the left, whatever that cul-de-sac is, at the end of that, well, it's a road and then a cul-de-sac at the end, but at the end of that road, there used to be 4 or 5 people parked, you know, kind of like, what would you call it?
Nose in.
Yeah, nose in parking. And there were others that didn't like that because they couldn't get out of the driveway and turn and all that kind of stuff. And then when they had company, then the people parked in somebody else's front yard or the road in front of their house instead of over there. And so there was always that stuff kind of going back and forth. But their driveway was only 1 width wide, and it might have been 2 car lengths or 3 car lengths long, but it still wasn't enough room for everybody to get in there. And you couldn't park parallel to the curb in there because if somebody else was parked, there was no way to get in. And so everybody just put in and parked like that. And there's really not a lot you can do about that except to change some ordinance to keep it from allowing people to build houses in cul-de-sacs like that, so it won't happen again.
But that doesn't solve the two problems.
That doesn't solve the ones that are already out there. And part of it too, and it comes and goes, but you know, people may have a husband and a wife with 2 cars and kids that are 12 years old. And then one day they're 16 and 18 and got the problem, and it goes away when they get out of college and get married and moved away. Yeah, some of that stuff I'm not sure. Now, if people are parking, and I'm guessing, and I don't know, but if they're parking on the side of the road in the proper direction, but it still keeps other people from coming down the road, that would be impeding traffic flow, and you could write them a ticket, I guess. If somebody had a boat, I don't know about that. If our ordinance doesn't say anything against the boat, then our ordinance, unless the county has something that you can't park a boat in the county road, it wouldn't apply in our town, or would it?
I'd have to look at the ordinance. I don't even see, I've got some of the parking ordinances here in front of me. I don't see any mention of a boat anywhere.
Yeah, and here's these ones I wanted to give you a copy of. Oh, you found them? Okay, good. Because we do have some that conflict with each other that Eric's going to look at and try to straighten them out about unlicensed vehicles and that kind of stuff too, as to whether you have to park them in a garage or whether you can come up with a car cover. We got it both ways.
But you're going to check on the boat?
I just don't see any mention of a boat in the ordinances that I have before me now. I can go
Okay.
search the Muni code and see if, and I can keyword search for boat and see where it's.
But if Richland County has one, would it apply in our town?
In the absence of your having one, of your own, yes.
Oh, okay.
Ah.
So if we don't have one and they do, then,
Richland County would supersede
well,
our lack of ordinance.
yeah.
Unless we have,
Because they wouldn't know about it, so they couldn't write a petition if they didn't know about it.
It's like, for instance, with like business licenses and whatnot, Richland County has a business license for the unincorporated portions of Richland County. But if you're in the city of Columbia or Forest Acres or Irmo or whatever else, you can charge for your own business license.
Right.
Richland County doesn't charge you for one.
I see.
But we would need to, take a look at some of that stuff. And as far as this one, I wanted to make sure too, because I think I read some emails after this got second reading that made me think some of this wasn't, we didn't understand it or we wasn't on the same page. So I kind of want to go over it again and make sure we understand, and is it up on the thing? Oh, well, I can't touch that. How do you make it go up? Oh, there you go. I want to touch it with my finger and move it. I'm sorry. Anyway, what it says right now, which is third reading, is no vehicle shall be parked in the area in front of a residential, not necessarily the front yard, but in the area in front of a residential dwelling, except on a parking surface such as concrete, asphalt, approved at the original time of construction. So whatever was built with the house, whatever that is, that's fine. That's going to be in front of a house, whether it's circle driveway or not. It's still kind of in front of the house because it's in front of the garage. Any future added parking area in the front area of the home, just what's directly in front of the home, must be approved by the zoning administrator. Front area to be understood by all property, to be all property directly in front of the home. So if it's in front of the home, that's the front area. If it's to the side, it's not. And in section B, additional parking would be allowed on side yard next to the original approved driveway, parking area, whatever. Defined will be understood to mean an area that's kind of defined. It's laid out with a defined border of landscape, timbers, railroad ties, landscape blocks, bricks, solid cinder blocks, and all that stuff. And then inside of that, people can put mulch, pine straw, crush and run, gravel, whatever they want to put. But that's a defined area, and that's next to their existing driveway.
Unless it impacts on setback.
Well, and that's something we'll have to change, because I think we'll probably need to change it, because if somebody can put up a fence, we might as well allow them to put up railroad timbers. They're shorter, or whatever you call it, less than the fence and less than the bushes, and probably less than the monkey grass. But I think we'll need to address that, yeah. And then designated, because it says you can have a defined or designated. Designated would be understood to mean any approved solid surface like concrete. So if they want to pull a concrete pad, that's fine. That's a designated area. And they got to get it approved as to where they put it. Any other side yard, which would be the other side yard if they live on a corner or whatever, must meet the dish and B, and then also be approved. So they can do the same thing on each side of the yard. They just got to get the town administrator or zoning administrator to approve it. And then I think the main thing that was clear, and what Milton Cooley was also talking about, the education, is when this thing goes into effect, which would be if we passed it tonight, it would be tomorrow, we can write abatement notices, but we won't be given any tickets until February the 18th. And that's 6 months, if I think of. And you don't have to give them, but you can wait 3 months from now. But the more time we give people, the better. And that way they can start planning on figuring out what they're going to do. Or they can start complaining that they can't do something, and then we can come back and change it and figure it out and whatever we got to do to correct it. And then Section B, which is the making a parking place defined or designated, they got until August of 2018. We can go ahead and give them abatement notices starting tomorrow, whenever, but we won't write them a ticket until August 18th, so they actually got a year to figure out. They got 6 months to get out the front yard and a year to figure out what kind of parking place they're going to make, whether it's just pine straw with something around it or whether it's concrete or whatever. I just want to make sure we understood that so people will. And I'm guessing if we write up an abatement notice tomorrow, even though we have a 10-day abatement notice, do they just write on there a year from now or whatever date?
No, I mean, if the officers have time, I'm sure they go out
And I'm not saying they got to go out tomorrow, but
knock on doors and say, you know, we've got a new law.
and they don't even have to give an abatement. They can just give them a copy of something.
Right. You can always scratch through and put a date on there and say, you know, February 2018, you know.
Okay. So they can do that in the 10-day won't apply. Okay. But yeah, I think too we'll have some time to get some feedback and then figure out what else we need to do. And we'll have some time to look at that setback that you're talking about, because I think we do need to address that. I don't have a problem with having a exemption in there for that. You know, if they were building a building, that'd be a different story. But since it's in the ground or within 4 feet or 4 inches of the ground or 6 or something, then I think it'd be.
But then if they were pouring concrete, that violates another ordinance. I said if they were pouring concrete in a setback, that violates another ordinance about a permanent structure in a
Well, that's the thing, it
setback
says
area.
structure, and I think if we take that out or take that thing out, that a driveway.
That's
is
what
not
I'm
a
saying. We've
structure.
got so many that contradict each
Yeah.
other.
Well, that's the one I read in here, because it does say structure, but I think if we say a driveway is not a structure, that may
Right.
eliminate that or something. But Eric's supposed to be looking at all these and kind of giving us.
But this doesn't address the problem with the cul-de-sac.
No.
So
Yeah, we still, I mean, no matter what we do, that's not going to be addressed because there's
No.
no way to, other than, I was somewhere, I can't remember where I was, but I was delivering furniture last week in a new neighborhood. Actually, it's out there, what's that place called, Ivy Green?
Ivy Green. There is an Ivy
I
Green.
think that's the one. It may not have been. It may have been somewhere else. I don't know. Anyway, they had the thing that you talked about. They had signs up. No parking on this side of the street. And they had it all the way through the neighborhood. No, I was out there on whatever that road is, Cherokee Drive, Cherokee Trail, not on that side of the lake over there. And a new subdivision built over there, but they had that. And I was surprised that when I rode through there, it actually worked, and it actually looked like it made sense. And that may be an option. I was kind of opposed to it before because I just didn't think people would pay attention to it, but that whole neighborhood, people did. One side they allowed parking, and one side they didn't.
Well,
Solves the problem.
And I don't know if it was
would.
put in when the neighborhood was built and everybody knew that when they bought
That's
the
new.
house, or it came later. I don't know. But that may be an option that we do on Cul-de-sac Street,
that might be what we have to do.
is to add a no parking on this side of the street in that area. The only problem with that too is you got to be, let's just say there's 50 cars all together for all the houses in there, and everybody's parking in the driveway or kind of part of the yard, side yard, and now all of a sudden half of them can't. Then we got to figure out that, but that may be an option in there, is to do one side of the street only in some of these areas.
One right a homeowner has is to be able to get to their house and leave their house. And I don't want to infringe on that. If we have to amend it or add something or whatever, we need to try something because people have to be able to get to their house. And ambulances, emergency vehicles have to get through. That's important.
You said one right that a homeowner has is
One right they have is ingress and egress. They have the
to
right.
their property.
Uh-huh.
Okay. I think you ought to continue that thought and let's say that the homeowner has a right to park anywhere they want on their property as well. It's not just getting to the property, but actually parking anywhere they want. Now, I know we're trying to create this Irmo HOA effect where you can't park in the front yard and you can't park and you have to have a designated crush and run or whatever designated, parking structures or platform that you want to put it on. But you have to understand, some people have homes that they simply cannot add another driveway to, and they pull into the front of their homes. Now, you're saying that they have to go to Bob now and get a permit or get an approval from Bob to take that little driveway that they've been parking in front of the house and get a permission to put down pine straw or crush and run or whatever surface they want to put down. And that's okay, but again, what have you accomplished? They're still going to park in front of the house. You haven't done anything. All you've done is said that you can park there, but now you have to put down a surface that you can park on that's approved by Bob or the town. And I don't think that's accomplished what we're actually trying to do, which is to stop people from parking anywhere they want on their property.
Okay, what we're gonna do?
Well, I'm saying we're infringing on the rights of people to use their property as they see fit. And I think that's what we're doing here. But again, I understand that we want to try to beautify the neighborhoods and make sure that when people park on their property that they're doing it nicely and, not parking anywhere or having 16 cars being worked on in front of the house. And of course, I'd like to see that too. But the majority of people that live in the town of Irmo did not choose to live in an HOA. I did. That's why I live in Harbison. And we have those ordinances that say you can't do those sort of things in my neighborhood. In Friarsgate, I don't know if they do or not, but they had it at one time, I suspect. I think you told me that one time that
Yes,
Old Friarsgate had ordinances and stuff like that, but New Friarsgate certainly does not. And if we're attempting to make a Irmo-wide HOA, and that's what we're actually doing here, then that's fine, but you're actually going to start impeding on people's rights to enjoy their property by doing
Well, I have a little question since we're going to talk about infringing on homeowners' rights.
Mm-hmm.
When I first got on council, one of the things I said I wanted to do was somehow take this piece of paper that applied to people who owned homes but chose to move away and rent their houses out to someone versus the rules over here that is the homeowner who still lives in his home in the town of Irmo. They're different. This person who rents his house out is held to a higher standard than the person who lives in their home. So are we not doing the same thing that you say we're doing to people right now, to the man who's trying to rent his house out because he doesn't want to sell it? It's an investment. And that's the whole thing. A home is an investment, the biggest investment you'll make in your life. Mm-hmm. And you want to keep it valuable. I mean, if you don't, why ever paint it? Why ever even shut a door? Let thieves come in and thieves go out. But I think everybody ought to be on the same page as far as that goes, because we tell a person who rents his house out that you can't have a car parked on your property unless it is on a solid surface, concrete asphalt surface. That's in the ordinance. Mm-hmm. You can't have more than 4 vehicles. You have a torn screen, you've got to fix it right away. You can't have a banister that's hanging. You can't have a window that's not functioning properly. I realize that's safety issues protecting the homeowner in case the renter gets in a jam, but it's still the same thing. It's a homeowner. Mm-hmm. He just chooses to live somewhere else and let someone live in his home who needs a place to live.
There's something else that we certainly have to remember. When you sign a deed to your house, you may well also agree to the covenants, deed restrictions, and everything else that goes with it. And when you brought up Friarsgate, it made me think of Mr. Mungo, and I'm pretty sure all of his building restrictions had to do with not parking in front. I'm pretty sure I can't swear to it, but I think they did. So you're not free to do anything you want to on your property. If you start walking around naked in your front yard, I can assure you, you'll be arrested. And there are other things too. There's a lot of things you can't do, but unless you know all the covenants and restrictions, doesn't matter about the HOA, because you already agreed to all the other stuff when you signed the deed.
And a lot of the older neighborhoods, Friarsgate, did have homeowner associations.
They did to start with when
and
they signed the
kind
deed.
of dwindled away and
But
all those things.
I think all the Mungo neighborhoods restricted parking at the front door, I believe. And this has tested my memory pretty hard for an old woman, so.
And covenants do not expire.
They don't expire. Neither
They
do
renew
deed
automatically
restrictions.
every
Neither do
20
building
years,
codes.
and the only way you can get rid of covenants is a majority of the property owners
Yeah.
must vote them out, and it has to be on the even year ballots, not the town of Irmo ballot, because it affects the whole county.
But I know what you're saying, but I'm not necessarily. I don't know that that's true about everything on a piece of property.
You know, I understand that there are people who think we're infringing upon their rights. I see a lot of those emails, and I agree with a lot of them to a certain extent, too. You know, I don't like people telling me what I can do and can't do in my property or anything for that matter. I'm sure y'all know that, and I'm sure my wife knows that. But, you know, we do. We live in a rule. We live in a society. We live close to people, and we have rules, like walking around naked and making crack cocaine or methane or whatever.
Can't do that either, yeah.
You know, shooting people and eating people and burying people in their backyard. Who knows what? We can't. I mean, there's all kind of rules.
No.
We can't drive and drink, and we can't speed and all that stuff. And we've agreed to those because we do live in a society, in a close-knit place, especially when you live in a municipality or a subdivision. And I think part of the problem is when people bought homes many years ago and they were new and they had those restrictions, and everybody kind of kept everything up, and things have changed. Changed to the point where a lot of people who lived here for a long time, and I can think of many names, that have said, I'm tired of seeing Irmo go downhill. Y'all need to do something about it. You need to do something about it. And I think that's what we're trying to do. Not build a HOA, but to take the worst offensive things, or the most common that we get the most calls on, like the high grass and all these kind of stuff. And evidently, looking at that report, I'm surprised how many unlicensed vehicles we have in our town. It's just amazing. I would have never thought that. But we do try to address those main things, and at the same time, we could make a law or ordinance, whatever, that said you can't park in the yard whatsoever unless you're on the driveway. But we didn't do that. We're trying to do something that gets people out of the yard as much as possible, but gives them options too. Some of them a little bit more expensive, like a concrete pad, and some of them less expensive, like railroad ties and pine straw, so that they have some options. And we're giving them a year to kind of move towards that direction.
Or to force us to change it.
Yeah, and to, you know, when things hit the fan and we go, oh, that didn't, whatever, go back and change it, like the parking on one side of the road in a cul-de-sac, or
it's just,
I don't know how you pick one side of the road in a cul-de-sac. But I don't know. Somebody, y'all too, since y'all can figure that one out. But I think that might be an option that we need to look at, and then kind of go from there. But I think we do need to do something to kind of slowly start ebbing the tide of all that. When people tell me, and I've talked to some realtors too, that they can't sell houses or bring people into the neighborhood to show a house because the other houses look bad, and people go, I don't want to buy a house because of that house or whatever it is, then that's affecting everybody in that neighborhood. And it's affecting our town as well. And if we can start addressing some of that, and then the people that do decide that, you know, they don't care, well, they're probably going to do the same thing. And that's kind of that snowball effect. So I think, yeah, this is a good start. The thing that you were talking about, the rental home, you know, I do agree or believe that we can have two different ordinances. I think that other one needs some work too, but when we passed that thing many years ago, and kind of the same thing I'm saying tonight, We passed it with the idea that we would get feedback and change it. And we went on about our merry way and never did a different thing. And I think we need to do, and the same thing here. We need to listen. We need to find out from code enforcement what's working and what isn't, what the problems are. And then we need to come back to the table and change it again. And amend it as much as possible until we get it kind of flowing better.
I agree.
I've got some stuff from Clemson, I think it is, and they do their parking in their rental homes a little bit different, and they do their who they give the ticket to a little bit different, and they do some stuff, but I think would be better. As a business owner, and anybody that builds a, they know when they come to town, we're going to tell them they need X amount of square foot or X amount of parking for a square foot. So that they don't create a parking issue. I think we can do the same thing with the rental home. They got to have it, or they can't rent it to somebody with 10 cars if you only got 4 spots. But we need to kind of pull those things back up. You can look at this thing here. And we got something on the agenda that all 5 of us are guilty of, that we voted not too long ago, and we put section something on 268 instead of 264, and it's supposed to be. I don't know how we did it, but we did it. And we did it here, where one of these ordinances says you can't put a unlicensed vehicle unless it's in a garage, and the other one says car cover. So, and we just need to kind of go back and look at some of this stuff and change it a little bit more and make sure we get the stuff out and get rid of those conflicting things or confusing things or whatever. But that's my 2 cents.
I think the audience is pretty well confused already now from all we've been saying, so.
Well, we all should be equally confused then.
Right.
Any more discussion on 1718? You ready to vote? Mm-hmm. All in favor then of third and final reading on ordinance 1718, do so with show of hands. All opposed? Let's see, there's only 3 here, 3 to 1. Next item is new business, first reading of ordinance 1720 to amend our town code, section 268. And this is the one I'm talking about. And is there a motion for first reading?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
And I may ask Bob because I am confused too. But on 268, which is the agenda for special meetings, we made a ruling a while back, or changing the ordinance, as to all the things in Section A and Section B. And item C, all the things in item C are actually supposed to be on 264 rules of order for a regular meeting. Is that right, Bob? That's what I thought, yeah. So what we're doing is taking section C out of 268, which is this one here, section C, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then on the next ordinance, we're going to add it to section 264.
Yeah.
Taking it out of 268 and putting it in 264. Okay. So is that? Mm-hmm. But I don't know how we did it, but we did it. And I don't know what I was reading one day when I read it. And
Making a lot of changes at the time. 268 wasn't actually titled for special meetings.
That's right. That's what it was. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you, Bob.
So, any discussion?
Let's fix it.
All in favor then of ordinance 1720, which amends section 268, do so with show of hands. And then the next one is ordinance 1721, which basically adds those things into this section. So is there a motion for first reading on ordinance 1721?
I so move.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, do so with show of hands. And next reading is next ordinance is 1722, first reading of that. This has to do with the flood stuff and
all this stuff.
Yeah, we'll let Bob talk about some of that. Is there a motion for first reading?
So move.
And a second?
Second.
Bob, you want to kind of fill us in? This is the new FEMA map stuff?
They've come out with the new maps, and it will take effect in December 2017. But the draft came out in 2015. We've been working to get it all squared away since then. But we have to have an ordinance saying that we adopted
Okay.
Okay.
for their records more than ours.
So any discussion? All in favor then of ordinance 1722, do so with show of hands. And next is ordinance 1723, which I'm assuming is kind of the same thing. Is there a motion for first reading?
So moved.
Second.
And any discussion on this one? And Bob, is this just
This one's a little different, though. The last one was the fact that we are adopting the flood maps that they produced at the BAS. This is that we are adopting Lexington County and Richland County as their floodplain managers, as
okay.
ours, depending on which part of town it affects.
Okay. And whatever changes they've got in there since last time, then
Correct.
we're
This is
adopting that.
Also that we qualify for FEMA funds if we ever have disaster through here.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor then of first reading of ordinance 1723, do so with show of hands. And next is first reading of ordinance 1724, which is the annexation thing. This evidently is the driveway that's over there at Southland Log Homes that didn't get annexed years ago. I don't know if we thought it was a public road, and it's not, but looks like their driveway. Is there a motion for first reading to annex that property, 1724?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Like I say, I think it's just that little road.
We just missed it the first time, so that was.
Yeah. And it looks like it's a road, so I'm guessing we probably thought it was a road and not a annexable piece of property, so to
This
speak.
is all Southland Log Home. They own the whole section. All that pink that you see on the paper map I gave you outlines the road a little bit better, but it has a separate tax map number.
Okay.
That's the reason it wasn't ever caught up.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor then, do so with show of hands. Next item is F, a motion to censure Mayor King regarding this action. And let me just say this before we go further. If this gets a motion in a second, I'm going to give, well, one or two things. I'm going to give the gavel to our presiding
Mayor Pro Tem.
Mayor Pro Tem to do the rest of this part of the meeting. If it doesn't, then we'll move on to the next thing. And as far as like Councilman Walker had mentioned and Councilman Pouliot, what I thought he was saying is if it gets a second, he wants us to defer it. But if it doesn't get a second, then he don't care, but he wanted to be here if we were going to discuss it. So I will make a,
Okay,
well,
wait a minute. Do what now?
If it gets a second, we have to make a motion to defer it.
No, but what did Pouliot say?
He wants to be here.
if we discuss it.
Oh,
We're gonna-
But if
okay.
we're not making a second, he don't care, but if we were gonna make a second, he wanted to discuss it.
Okay.
And if it gets a second, then like I say, I'm gonna either let Julius sit over here if he wants to, or
You don't have to
Not
switch.
to move seats.
give you the podium and do all that stuff, so. Anyway, is there a motion to censure Mayor
Well, wait a
King?
minute. It was my motion, it was my ordinance,
Right.
it's my motion I was gonna put down. So I'd like to start by saying, Mayor Hardy King, I'm going to propose a motion to censure you, which I have the right to do. And I'm turning to Mr. Julius Waits now and saying, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem Waits, I'm asking that I move for the following resolution to censor Mayor King, whereas Mayor Hardy King has involved himself in an Irmo court proceeding, representing himself as the mayor, and whereas he has vigorously testified in court proceedings against our town ordinance for one of his close friends, and whereas such conduct has prejudiced the court proceedings, And whereas such conduct is detrimental to the governing of the town, I am since, and whereas the mayor has potentially created a hostile work environment, be it resolved that the mayor is censored. And Mr. Waits,
Is there a second?
well, Mr. Waits has to say that.
It's not been seconded yet, Mr. Waite. It's got to be a second first. before
Mr.
we
Waits has
start.
to say that.
Is there a second?
Mr. Waits has to say what?
Is there a second?
No, I have no control until it is seconded.
Okay.
It's still under the control of the mayor.
I didn't hear one either. But I'm
I said
assuming that was his
I
motion.
proposed a
No,
motion
yeah,
to censor you.
That's fine.
That's the first thing I said.
Okay, so is there a second? No second?
Those are the actions that you
Okay.
So that's what I'm asking for, a second for that. And if there is no second, then I guess we agree that it's okay.
Right.
I'd like to make a comment, but
Well, second,
You
we
can make a
talk about
comment
it.
at a later time, but
okay.
so motion dies for lack of second. Next item is an approval to become a sponsor for the inaugural Explore Lexington County Guidebook not to exceed $5,000. Is there a motion for approval?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion.
This is the book that the Lexington Chronicle's putting out, isn't that right? Isn't it?
They're putting it out, them and the Ledger, Chronicle and the Ledger working together to come up with a book that better identifies the towns within Lexington County as opposed to in conflict with Lake Murray country, which talks about Lake Murray, but nothing really talks about each one of the towns in the county. That's what they want to hit on.
I think we ought to have an ad, or we ought to have information in there, but I don't know about $5,000.
That's not to exceed.
I know.
You have different options from 2,500 on out.
Did y'all read the options?
Yeah, it was like 2,500. You got a
Yeah.
front page and,
Sponsorships start at 2,500 and go up, but for $75 you can get a little bit.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
So we're gonna spend 5,000 is what I'm saying.
But I think the question is, are we getting more bang from our buck through Lake Murray country, or do we get more bang for our buck through this?
It looked like with this, to me.
Don't know, this is the first time they've done it. They're planning on getting 15 copies made of the book once they get it all approved and get all
But
the
if-
money in.
If we do the, whatever it was, 2,500 or 35 or 5, then we get so many pages, and then we can put anything in those pages we want to,
That's
like
correct. We can lay it out the way we want.
come move to Irmo or,
Or we
Come to the
whatever.
Overstrat.
Discussion, come up
Yeah.
with something that's good and grabby, or good marketing tool.
now, what if we do the 2,500 and somebody else has already bought it? Or do we know until,
You still get 2 pages.
Oh.
That's the prime sponsorship, if they've already got it, the front page and the back page.
okay.
So if you want that, probably need to get on it right away, or somebody probably already has it. But if not, we'd still get 2 pages somewhere in the book.
So if we say up to 5,000, that means you pick up to 5,000, or if we say not over 2,500, then if we,
I want you guys to decide how much information you want to put in this book.
and if we say 2,500 and it's already gone, then you'd come back and tell us we need to do a 3,500 one or something, or we'd get a 25 regardless.
They're trying to get the money now, so you always have the 2-page option
Oh, okay.
for the 2,500.
So 25 is 2-page.
Photo in there, put a bunch, an article, I mean, they're still regular pages, 8.5 by 11. So just try to visualize 2 of those, talking about Irmo. Is it a good deal? I don't know.
Well, I know we got the stuff not too long ago that we're the safest, one of the safest cities in South Carolina, 17th. We also got that thing from whoever it was that we were one of the smartest cities on the list. I know we had the affordable thing.
Not
years ago.
necessarily up here.
Yeah. That may be, yeah. But we got some of that stuff we could put in there.
We do.
And we're in School District 5, which is a big thing. So,
Why don't we go for 2,500?
That'll be fine, and once we
Okay.
get something drafted, I mean, we'll always come back to council, you'll get final approval before we submit it to these guys, but I'll call up Jerry and, talk to him, work through this.
I think it's a good idea because we don't get enough publicity in other publications. And,
Or mention.
or mentioned, yeah, if the mailing address wasn't Irmo, they'd never say a word. But anyway,
What did we give Lake Murray Country last year exactly?
was it 12? Well, there were two funds, two sources. but
Yeah. But as,
Out of the
as the town of
35
Irmo, part went to the Chamber of Commerce and part went to Lake Murray Country.
That was the 30%, that's what council gives out, that does not involve the accommodation captive by, that's correct.
But out of that 30%,
That was 30%.
how much how did we split that up? Do you remember?
Remember, we had given Lake Murray Country like $6,000 earlier in the year before we had to put together the advisory committee, and then we had more funds, so it was a different 30%.
It was like 10 and
Much.
10 and something.
It was like 12,000, and we ended up giving, I think, 9,000 to the chamber and a couple thousand to Lake Murray, and it kind of balanced out what they both got.
Yeah.
And when that's coming up again here probably in a month, we've got one more payment to get from the state, and then we'll have to do it all over again.
Okay.
okay.
So you,
I make a motion, we give them 2,500.
second
my
that.
eyes ain't worth the dirt anymore. So,
Yep.
is there a second on
I
that?
second that.
Any discussion?
That's enough.
All in favor then of the 2,500, do so with show of hands. Next is the approval of a memorandum of agreement for the detention services with the Department of Juvenile Justice. And is there a motion for that?
So move.
And I want to say, was it 50?
It's still $50.
$50, yeah. So it's the same as it's been for a while. Any discussion? All in favor then, do so with show of hands. Next is the approval of a contract between the town and Waste Management, which is the people that run the landfill in Richland County, for disposal services at Richland County Landfill at $25.79 a ton for a 5-year term. And if we get a motion in a second, Bob can explain all this. So is there a motion?
So move.
Second.
All right, Bob. And is this for both, or is this just for the,
This is just for the household garbage.
and that's called MS,
County.
that's called MSW or something, or?
All in this building.
So,
Now, Eric's already viewed this, he's made a couple recommendations, and Richland County legal team went ahead and approved it. So I picked up the original copy today, so what you've got just shows what the changes were recommended.
Okay.
so for everybody's understanding and everybody, when Tyler picks up our trash, whether it's in Richland County or Lexington County, they're gonna take the Lexington to Lexington and the Richland to Richland, and they're gonna charge us X amount of dollars a home, whatever it was on their contract. And then when those trucks go to Richland County, they get weighed or something, and they figure out how much stuff has been dumped over there that came from Irmo, and then they're gonna charge us $25.79 a ton
That's correct.
for the household garbage, not the recyclables and not the
And not the yard.
yard trash. That's on a different thing down here. And basically that means whatever Lexington County is paying is gonna be one price, and whatever Richland County is paying, because Lexington don't charge to dump, and whatever Richland County, we're gonna have to charge our citizens in Richland County more to cover that if we want to. That's up to us, but we'll have to.
But let's let the citizens also know why this happened.
Yeah.
Southland had an agreement with the dump, but when Southland was bought out by Advanced.
Well, they were bought out by somebody else first. I didn't know that either, but there was a third
Well, anyway,
equity firm that bought them.
They never changed the name, so
Yeah.
It's still was Southland, yeah. So when Advance took over, they found out that if they had to take their trucks all the way down into lower Richland County to dump their trucks, it took so much time and so much gas. So they just started hippie hopping over to Lexington County and dumping the trash. Richland County trash in Lexington County, and
let's be careful and say we think that because we don't.
well, we
know
were
for
told
sure.
that, and they admitted it. So it didn't look good, and Lexington County could possibly still say something more about it, but they chose to wave and say, go thou and sin no more. So we're lucky that we've got a contract with Richland
Well,
County.
Their council
now.
over there could come back differently, but I think they know getting blood out of a turnip is going to be difficult.
Lexington County didn't have a landfill.
Yeah, so they don't charge.
Everything gets
But they
dumped
dump over there too.
Richland and Lexington has to pay for it also.
Ah,
They're paying the same thing we are.
Yeah, well, they're probably a little bit less, but yeah, they pay too. But they also charge, Lexington County charges their citizens a millage that's built into their millage rate. And that's why they don't charge anything, because it's covered by that. Richland County charges the same thing, but they also tack on top too, so.
So why wasn't this included in the contract originally with
Because they told
Tyler?
Richland County and Richland County, I think it told, Richland County told Tyler and told y'all and told us, so to speak, that there was no charge.
When they first started out, that's correct. They said there was no charge.
But that was Richland County, not Waste Management.
Right.
But then Waste Management came back and said, oh, no, we do charge too.
Somebody in Richland County that I spoke to was misinformed.
Yeah. And then we found out they do charge because they charge Forest Acres and Arcadia Lakes. And they
So
charge,
Richland County is not Richland County. This is Waste Management.
Yeah.
It runs the dump.
they own it.
The dump, the landfill.
And because, and this is speculation too, but I guess when the trucks were going out there and they knew they were getting weighed, maybe they decided, we'll go here instead of there. And I guess nobody knew it until somebody said something. And then Waste says, wait a minute, yeah, those trucks should have been coming here. We should have been weighing and we should know about it. And so that's when they said, hey, fine, y'all going to have to pay from now on out. But and Tyler has said they will dump the Richland and the Lexington and all that good mess.
So we got
And
to
it's been a good mess.
we got to pay this.
Paying this fee to the landfill for the last 20 years.
And Lexington's been paying it to Waste Management too. Everybody has, seems like, but us. But I don't know. So any more discussion? And all in favor then of the approval of the contract between town and Waste Management for $25.79 a ton for 5 years, do so with show of hands. The next is the approval, and we don't have this one yet?
We don't have that. We have to not defer it. We'll just put it on when we actually get the form. It's tied up over in Richland County right now.
Yeah. And this is for the yard trash, what they're roughly estimating, calculating that they're going to charge us to dump yard trash over there once they get the contract. Because this gets dumped at a different place. Why is this one in Richland County?
Landfill, that's correct. And
So it goes,
not nearly the same amount.
okay. All right, next is, the approval to cancel the August 1st meeting in observance of National Night Out. So, we can cancel it and go to that thing, or if something important, real
So moved.
whatever
Cancel.
comes up, then we can, whatever.
Yes.
But is there approval?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor then of canceling that August 1st meeting, do so with show of hands. And the next is presentation by citizens. This is where anybody who would like to address council on anything, whether it's on the agenda or not on the agenda, may do so at this time. All we ask is you give us your name and address for the record and come to the podium. Seeing none. Next is the discussion on the new solid waste dumping fee for Richland County residents of the town of Irmo, and this is something that we have talked about a little bit. And I'm gonna go by what I remember Bob saying, and then he can kind of correct. But right now, we pay $180 a year. What the residents pay to the town is $180.
$180 a year, which is $15 a house.
And under this new contract, it really needs to be $220 or something like that, or $212 or two something.
Yeah, 220, wasn't it?
220 something.
Yeah.
And we kind of decided that we were going to use the overage that's in that account to pay for that difference for a couple of years until it got close, and then we'd reconsider going up on the rate.
Right.
That's fine.
Yeah. Now, this is the new dumping fee, and we don't know exactly how much it's going to be because it's $25.79 plus maybe $8. And the yard trash won't be, as much and all that because you ain't got as much of it. But you said, was it 15 a year or 18 a year that we may have to go up on the Richland County residents to cover that? Do you remember how much it was?
Well, it's in the administrative briefing,
Oh.
but without having to read the whole thing, because I pretty long and drawn out there. $16 per house per year addition.
And that covers both of them, or just the MSW?
No, that's both of them.
That's both. So that's something we need to think about.
And that's just for Richland County.
That's just for Richland County.
County, they go up to 196, and Lexington would stay at 180.
Now, we could take it out of that money. The only problem with that money is really kind of Richland County and kind of Lexington. And
Yeah, that money will diminish quickly if we take too much out of it.
And you'd be paying Richland County people's bill with Lexington County's money in a way.
Well, that doesn't sound right either.
Yeah, so I don't know, that's a good idea, but